What is intrinsic value and how to calculate the intrinsic value for your investments? Do you want to know? Let's begin. The best definition of intrinsic value is given by none other than Warren Buffett. He says,
Hello, Mr. Buffett. I got two short questions. One is, how do you find intrinsic value in a company?
Well, intrinsic value is what is the number that if you were all knowing about the future and could predict all the cash that a business would give you between now and Judgment Day, discounted at the proper discount rate.
So we will understand each of this part. So what is the cash? How do we withdraw the cash, and what is the discounted rate? So to understand everything, we will look into 2 or 3 examples and understand each of them. So let's dive into the Excel sheet that I have created to understand this in a much better way. So now let me just help you with this Excel sheet that I have, or Google sheet that I have created. So there is a bond rate, which is the return that I would get when I am investing the capital into a fixed deposit or any instrument which is secured, government bonds or things like those. And we have the current value or a price at which we are investing, and then there is a growth rate for the investment or for the cash that is coming out. So what is the growth rate of the alternate investment that we are doing instead of the bond rate, and what is the value that we are getting out, and cumulatively how it is being defined or how much we are getting over a period of time. So let's say that we invest 1 lakh rupees or 10 lakh rupees into a property. So now generally the property rent is roughly 5 to 7%, 5%, close to 5% or 4% for residential property, and 7-8% is for commercial property. So let's say we get 50,000 rupees as the rent for the property that we have rented out for, and bought the property for 10 lakh rupees, and 50,000 rupees is the rent we are getting. So we can add the zeros over here. For 1 crore rupees you will generally get a 5 lakh rupees or 4 lakh rupees as rent. But for very simplistic calculation sake, for 10 lakh rupees property we are getting yearly rent as 50,000 rupees. So now the growth rate of this rent is say 4% or 3%. For a nominal growth of this rent. So in first year you gave it out for 50,000 rupees. Next year you are getting the rent as 51,500 rupees. So the cumulative rent that you have got after 1 year is 1,15,000 rupees. And as the rent increases, your cumulative rent accumulation keeps on increasing. So after 3 years, so you have a total accumulated rent of 1,54,545 rupees. So now what happens is, but after 4 years, if this 10 lakh rupees you would not have invested in the property itself, then it would have got to 11,88,100 rupees if you would have parked it into some bond rate where you are getting 9% as interest. So now the total amount of cash that we have withdrawn from the investment is much less than the initial investment as yet. So as the time passes, we get more and more rent out, and in the 16th year, so in the cell number 17, so it's the 16th year, we get more than 10 lakh rupees as the cumulative rent. This is when the property that we have invested has given us the rent more than what we have invested in an initial amount, say 15-16 years back. But that value is not the actual value, because now what happens is the property that you have has given you a good cash, but that property still exists with you. However, if you would not have invested in this property, the amount would have been anyway 36 lakhs. So this 10 lakh rupees you have taken out, but that is still not more than the discounted cash amount. So this is the discounted thing. So discounted means the value of the money that keeps on growing, so you discount the future value at the current price. So the 10 lakh rupees that you invested would have become 36 lakh rupees, or the 36 lakh rupees invested at that very particular moment has a discount of 10 lakh rupees in the reverse calculation. So now as the time passes, slowly but surely you make more money, because rent is never a good way to have a good money. It's decent cash flow, but then the value of that cash flow is not discount. Once you discount that to the actual return of the property, it's not very good. Like we see in the example, let's say the property price doubles every 10 or 12 years. So let's say even if this 10 lakh rupees becomes 20 lakh rupees, the total amount that you would have got is 20 lakh rupees as the value of the property and 10 lakh rupees as rent. So even after 15-16 years, the total your return is not 9% CAGR even. However, let's look at second example. So now we will look into a Divi's Labs example, and we will try to understand the discounted cash flow or intrinsic value of a business. So what I have done is I have kept the same calculation, but we are applying it on the price and the EPS basis. We are not applying on the complete business buyout basis, because that would be too much for to start with. We will definitely look into that, but first we will look at the EPS. So let's say I have a company where I only invest 2850 rupees, so 2850 rupees, and that business is generating 111 rupees as the cash out of the business. But what is more important is I'm able to grow that business at a 15% CAGR rate. The reason we have chosen 15% is because Divi's Lab is currently trading at 2850 rupees. It has a EPS of 111 rupees in the past year, and the average CAGR growth for the company has been around 15-20 in range of 20% the profit growth. So we have taken a conservative value of 15% at which the EPS keeps on growing. So now let's see. So now once we put in this thing, what happens is cumulative EPS after say 12 year becomes 3219. So in the 12th year, the total amount that we invested, let's say 2850 rupees that we invested in a company, the cumulatively the cash has been taken out from that business, and each of the EPS, like whatever is the profit that is generated from the business by investing 2850 rupees, I am taking out because I am the sole owner and I have only one share. So now what happens is after a certain period of time, let's say in 26 years, what happens is the total amount that 2850 rupees would have generated in a bond or a 9% bond rate or a secured way would have been 22,546 rupees, but the total cash that a business would have been able to generate is more than that. So that would become 23,620, and slowly but surely the intrinsic value is much more than the actual 9% bond rate. The reason this happens is because the cash that the business is generating is at a 15% rate and the bond rate is 9%. So there has to be a time when the 15% takes over the cumulative return from the 15%, though the amount is small. So we started with 111 in case of EPS, and the price that we started with is 2850. But because the 111 is growing at 15% and 2850 is growing at 9%, mathematically at one point the 2850's or the 111 will overtake the 2850 in the value terms. That's where the intrinsic value comes into picture. Now we will look into the intrinsic value of an actual business. So now to look at an actual business, we will again use the same Divi's Lab example. Before we get into the details, let me just help you understand in brief what is enterprise value. So enterprise value in a very simple way is the market cap of the company plus the debt minus the cash. So it means that whatever is the market cap of the business, that is because of its share price. a number of shares into the price that at which it is quoting. So if you have to buy the whole business, you have to spend the market cap. So let's say if I buy the whole business and I want to close down, then what I have to do, I have to pay the debt. So I need extra cash, and whatever is the cash in the books or the balance sheet of the business, I can use that because I have purchased the whole business. So the enterprise value means if I purchase the business and close it, that means the market cap is what I need to pay. I need to pay the debt and use the cash. So that's how the enterprise value comes into for any business. So now let's look at the enterprise value of Divi's Lab. See, market cap is 75,000 crores, but enterprise value is 72,000 crores. This means that the debt, there is no debt in the company, but it has surplus cash of 3,000 crores, around 3,000 crores. So let's see in the balance sheet. So borrowings is literally zero, and there is a cash and cash equivalent of around 3,000 crores. So that is how we calculate the enterprise value. So let's say if I now use that enterprise value as 72,000 crores. Now, the next thing we need to look at is the profits or the cash that the business is able to generate. Again, I will use a very simplistic screener based example, but in ideal case, we should be using the actual cash flow from the business. So let's say if I'm doing this business, I'm selling something at 9,000 crores, 8,960 crores for an expense of 5,075 crores. So my operating profit is 3,850, and there is an other income of 112 crores, and 2 crore is the interest that I'm paying. So we don't include depreciation and amortization in the calculation of cash flow, because depreciation and amortization is not a real profit and loss. It's an let's say you have purchased certain things, or furnitures or fixtures or say ACs, TVs, machinery, plant, anything, and you are depreciating its value in the profit and loss statements, but that's not an actual expense. The actual expense has been done in the past, and you are taking its benefit by using it because that asset is depreciating. So then that is not an actual cash outflow. So what happens is we use 3885 plus 112 minus 2 as the total cash the business is able to generate. This is a simplistic way of looking at it. Ideally, we should be looking at the cash flow, but I generally prefer to look at operating profit and the other incomes. However, the other income should not be from exceptional items. So I don't want to include other incomes, exceptional items, but only those that are part of the normal business. So we use that. So it becomes 3995. We should use 114 because the other income is 114. This exceptional item, okay, this exceptional item is each time there, so it may be part of the business, so it's better to use 112 only. So let's say we use this. So 3995 is the profit that we are getting. So let's say if I have 72,000, we are eliminating the crore part to make it simple. So if I have 72,000 rupees, I will buy out the complete business and I will be able to generate a profit of 4,000 crores. And I need to take into account the depreciation as well as I need to pay the taxes. Those two parts are not included in the this 4,000 crores. So now what happens is this 4,000 crore is the cash that it is generating, and I'm assuming I'm taking out all the cash. So then after say 10 years, the 72,000 rupees that I paid, I have taken it out because now my total cumulative money that has been generated from the business is taken out as 81,000. Generally, we don't take out the full money from the business, and the same money is being used to fuel the future growth of the business. However, for simplistic reason, we are using that we are taking out the money to understand. If we take only 80% of the money is taken out or 50% of the money is taken out, then the calculation will have a ratio based on how much you can take it out. And then we go on, and in the 20th year, we see that the total value or the growth of the the 72,000 rupees or 72,000 crores that we had and we purchased the whole business is less than. So if that money would have been kept in a bank deposit at a 9% CAGR, that would be less than the amount of money that this business would have generated for me. And still my initial investment of the business still remains. So business is there. I am just generating the money out of the doing the business. So now this keeps on increasing. Let's look at one more example. So I have chosen a company which has a 10% dividend return. This is a very unique example that will help us to understand the intrinsic value of a business and why you should be selling a business once you don't have good growth rate. So let me help you this with an Indian Oil Corporation. So now Indian Oil Corporation, we see that we will look into a different kind of an scenario where we will see only the dividend yield of the business, and dividend is the money that is being paid back to us. So let's say I have 78 rupees. So I invest in this business. So 78 rupees is what we need. So I have 78 rupees as the business, and 9 rupees is the dividend that is paid out. And this company has a good dividend history, so it pays out around 50% of its income as dividend. So we can assume that because the profit is growing at 9%, 5% and 13%, so profit is growing. So as the profit keeps on growing, the company will pay out the 50% of it as dividend. So that's the cash flow that we will be getting. Again, we are using a good example here because the company has a policy of paying out around 40% as dividend. So 8 rupees has been paid as 9 rupees has been paid as the dividend. So now the dividend will grow at an 8% rate. This is because the dividend will grow as the profit of the company's profit grow. So that would be 8%. So now in the first year, I invested 78 rupees, and at the end of the year, I got back 9 rupees. Next year, I got 9.72 rupees. So total amount withdrawn is 18.72. And slowly but surely in the 7th year, I get back the 80 rupees back. So the 78 rupees that I invested, I got it back. So now this investment is in green. Then in the 20th year, what happened is the 78 rupees that I invested would have become 367 rupees. But the cash or the dividend that is being paid would have become 373 rupees. So this is a good intrinsic value. So now what happens is from this point onwards, you see that everything remains in the green. However, there is an important point to note that after 46 years, what happens is initial 78 rupees that was invested, that is growing at 9%. Your cash flow is growing at 8%. So because there will be a point when 9% will overtake the 8% in a cumulative basis. So this is what happens after 46 years. Now the company has to grow faster. If it's not growing faster, or if the dividend being paid is not increased from 50% to 60% or 70%, then what happens is your initial intrinsic value that was generated in the year 20 is now being taken out. So once this becomes like a not so good investment, because there's one place where you're getting a 9% return, there's another place where you're getting 8% return, but the cash flow from that 8% is not very good as compared to 9%. However, one should remember that though you are taking out the cash, your initial investment still remains. So the point to calculate the intrinsic value is such that you are not willing to sell that company, or the sell is not what your mind is tuned for, but taking out the cash is the main thesis of your investment. Now let's look at the same example of dividend on Divi's lab. So we have been doing this for IOCL, and there was a special case for IOCL because at one point, because the growth rate was not good, the dividend cash flow turned out to be not so good intrinsic, it didn't provide a good intrinsic value. Now let's look at Divi's Lab. In case of Divi's Lab, what happens is you are paying 2850 as the share price, and 30 rupees is the dividend that you are getting. So now over a period of time, the dividend keeps on increasing, and in the 20th year, the total amount that you invested, that is 2850, you have taken it out. So now this is the money that has been taken out. However, in the 49th year, the 2850 rupees that you invested is more than the value of the dividends that you have received. We are only calculating the dividend because that's the actual cash flow that you will have based on the growth of the company. So the actual cash flow is much more than dividend. The company is paying dividend only at say 15% or 20% or at times 30%. Divi's Lab has a policy of paying dividend in range of around 30%, but this 30% can increase as well. So 15% cash flow that we are calculating is much better in case of Divi's Lab, because what happens is even if the profits don't grow at 15%, they can generate a lot more cash, and then slowly but surely they can increase the payout from 30% to 40% to 50% to 60% to 70%. So I like to see the share price and the dividend as one of the better ways to look at the intrinsic value. I hope this clarifies how to calculate the intrinsic value for you.